How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to an episode here on Let's Build Twitter. As always, I'm Ethan, or Unknown Coder, your favorite underqualified senior software engineer. And as always, if you guys do want access to the private repository, there's going to be a link in the description down below. I'll walk you through exactly how to gain access to that. Now, that being said, let's go and hop into what we're working on today. Today, we're going to go ahead and hop into the backend once again. We're going to go ahead and start working on a new way to process views. Fingers crossed, everything works. With the views thing, the view situation, the browser is still a little bit wonky about sending the information back and not sending duplicate stuff and stuff like that. And I think that's just something weird with the observers, but we're going to go ahead and try to make a more efficient way to go ahead and do that. Also, I did want to go ahead and give a quick update with the whole like sending a post and getting a notification thing. I think I'm going to need to do a little bit of a deeper dive because, as you can see, I went ahead and sent a new post and it showed up here like it was supposed to. But it's like very inconsistent. So if we go ahead and try to send this again, there's like a chance it doesn't show up, but there's also a chance that it does show up. So I'm gonna go ahead and send it, because whenever I'd finished investigating this before this episode started, it had worked again. So I'm like, okay, it must be fixed. But now I bet like it probably doesn't show up. It does show up. So I also just ran this and it didn't show up a second ago. So there's something funky going on. I might need to go ahead and like do some more investigation, but really I didn't even really change anything. This should all primarily be the same. All I did was added a console log or a system out print here, which is literally just going and printing out the author's username. We still have the list of the authors in, and then we go through and I just printed out each one of these. Again, nothing really, like this shouldn't affect anything. Also went ahead and printed that out. Again, it shouldn't affect anything. I'm actually gonna go ahead and comment out these console logs really quick. Let's see here, and this one, because I don't want them in our code. And then again, this is the same as well. Let's go through all of the lists that the author is in, and then we will go ahead and add them to that list followers, and then add them themselves. And then finally, we just go through and send all the notifications and whatnot. So it should be the same as it was in the last episode, other than adding console logs or system out prints. I've been doing a lot of JavaScript at work, I'm sorry. So I don't know what's going on with that, but I'm gonna go ahead and save this up. We're gonna lose that list. That's fine, because we're gonna go ahead and move away from the list here, and we're gonna go ahead and start working on setting up a better way to do views, which we're gonna go ahead and use web servers, or not web servers, I'm sorry, WebSockets. And we're gonna go ahead and make a multi-threaded thing here on the back end to go ahead and process them as they come in. So with that being said, let's go ahead and open up our Explorer here. We're gonna go ahead and create a new model. Let's go into our models. Actually, we don't need to do that. Let's go ahead and say space JC to make a new class. Go and put this in our models. And let's go ahead and call this post view. So there's a few ways that I tried doing this, and this ended up being like the best way to do it, because, and I completely forgot to add in something here. Let me go ahead and double check our code. We need to actually go ahead and make a post view ID, I believe. Let's go ahead and make that first. I'm gonna go ahead and track that post view ID code down, because I guess I forgot to add it in here. So give me one moment here. But there's a couple ways to do this. I tried adding the post, but I want it to be one of the primary keys, and you can't really easily use the post itself as part of the primary key. So that's why we're doing it the way we are. So kind of bear with me here. Also, let me go ahead and track down the code for this post view ID. I guess I forgot to put it inside the GitHub or from the GitHub. So it's going to be pretty simple. We're going to go ahead and come above, and we don't actually need anything in here. We're going to come over here, go and say implements, and then serializable. Whoops, serialize. I cannot spell. If I spelled that right or not. Let's go and import this. There we go. Import serializable, and it should make us implement override something, but I guess not. We're going to go and have a private string location. We're going to have a private maybe string, and this is going to be post ID. And this is what I was saying, like really I would like to put the entire post here to have a better database schema, but it is what it is. We're going to go ahead and set up a getter and setter and constructor. So generate constructors, go ahead and do a no argument, go ahead and generate a constructors for an all argument. And then we're also going to go ahead and generate a hash code and equals. So I'll go ahead and include both of those, and there we have it. So that's going to be basically a composite key for our views, because we want the unique location, we want the unique post. And the idea behind that, and this should actually be an integer. Give me a second here, and I just broke everything. Perfect. So integer, because we can't really rely on the person to be logged in because people can view them from anywhere. So basically what we're going to end up doing is we're going to get their IP address, quote unquote, or where they're logging or where they're viewing it from. And then we're going to go ahead and cross check to see if that post has already been viewed by that IP. Now, again, this could be botted because you can have like different IPs or whatever. But then what you probably want to end up going and doing is going through and checking all of the views against like known proxies and stuff like that and removing them. That's probably what Twitter would do, or Twitter would already have that list and cross-check as the views are coming in and get rid of them. But this is just a small project that we're trying to recreate Twitter, so I'm not going to worry about that. So now that we have this guy set up, let's go and say space JC once again, and let's go ahead and make a new class in our models. And then we're going to go ahead and call this post view. Now we're actually ready to create the post view. So now above our post view, we're going to go and throw at entity. We're also going to go ahead and throw at table. And then above, inside the table, we're going to say, whoops, name is equal to, and this is going to go ahead and be post underscore views. And then finally, we're going to have at ID, maybe class, there we go. And since we're using a composite key, we're going to post view and then ID dot class. Okay, so that's going to go ahead and tell Java, or basically our JPA here, that we're going to have a composite key on this. Let's go and say at ID, and the first one is going to be a private string location. And we're going to have at ID once again, and this one is going to be private integer, and then post ID. And like I said, there's probably a way to make this more normalized the way you're supposed to do it and actually pass the post in there, but it was giving me fits, so I went ahead and did it the easier way. Then at many to 1 here, and then at many to 1, we're going to go into a cascade. Whoops, cascade is equal to cascade type dot persist. I don't know why that's not showing up. We'll deal with that in a second. And at join column, and then at join column is going to be name equal to user. Whoops, user underscore ID, and then a nullable. This should be equal to true. I don't know why I put false there. Nullable equal to true, and then private application user. And then it's going to be user. So if the user is logged in, we'll go ahead and actually store them on here as well. Let's go and import cascade type. There we go. So inside of our post view, we're going to go ahead and keep track of the IP address of the person that is viewing it. That way they don't have to be logged in. We're also going to go ahead and persist the post ID, that we can keep track of what one they viewed, obviously. And then if the person is logged in, we'll go ahead and also log or store the user that viewed it. And let's go ahead and set up our getters and setters. So we'll go ahead and do a constructor here with nothing in it. We'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and do a constructor with everything in it. Looks good. And then finally, we'll go ahead and do our getter setters to string. So generate getters and setters. Go ahead and generate a toString and include everything in it, and that should be fine. So I don't think we need hash code equals. Oh, we are going to do a hash code equals. So let's go ahead and also do a hash code equals here. The hash code and equals will include everything, and there we go. So there is our simple post view. It's going to go ahead and keep track of everything that we need here. And now we can go ahead and hop into the post model and update the views. So let's hop in there. So now inside of here, before our post were a list of users, or not post, our views was a list of users. So right here. So now we're going to go ahead and remove this, and this is going to break a lot of stuff. We'll fix it in a second. So now we're going to go ahead and have a private and set. Don't import set if it's not imported. Post view, and then this is going to go ahead and be views. And then inside here it's going to have an at and one to many. We're not going to go ahead and keep track of the actual post on the view. Like I said before, it was causing me issues. So now we need to go ahead and just go through and update getters and setters and constructors and stuff. So this post should be fine. Now this views, we need to go ahead and change. And this is kind of a mess, but let's go ahead and come over here. This should be easy enough to fix. So instead of application users for views, this is going to go ahead and be a post view. So say post view. Okay, looks good. That should fix that. And then now we just need to come down here and fix these up. So now instead of set application user get views, it's going to be set a post view get views. And then same thing here. Just go ahead and change this to a post view. This is simple enough to fix. Post view. Unfortunately, this episode, we probably won't be able to really get to test this too big or too easily, but it is what it is. So now we need to go ahead and actually store these and all of that good stuff. So let's go ahead and open up our Explorer once again, or actually go ahead and make a new interface, JI. Go ahead and put this into our, I think we called this repositories. Let me actually go ahead and see what we called this, because I always accidentally make the wrong thing. Yes, it's repositories with an IES, and then this is going to go in repositories, and then this is going to go ahead and be, we're going to go ahead and call this post view repository. Let's open this up, go ahead and get rid of that. So here, let's just go ahead and throw at repository on this for the heck of it. And then over here, we're going to go ahead and say extends, extends JPA repository. We're going to go ahead and have our post view, import that in our integer like so, and then that is easy enough. So looks good. And then let's also go ahead and go into our post service. So let's go ahead and open up post service, and we're going to make a modification to our update post. So right now, let's find update post. I think if I remember correctly, it's pretty complicated, and we're going to basically just simplify this. Repost post like bookmark view. Obviously view's broken, so I'm going to go ahead and comment this stuff out really quick. So view post, and I think view post as well need to be commented out for the time being. And this is going to break a bunch of stuff. I don't even see, oh, I think we add this, that's why I'm not finding it. So we're going to go ahead and add a simple update post, and I'm just going to go ahead and put this below create. I'm assuming this is create, or this is reply or something. Let's see. Yeah, create post. Let's just go ahead and come down below create post here. I'm just going to go ahead and say public and post updates post, and this is going to be dead simple. We're going to say post, and then here all we're going to go ahead and say return post repo dot save, and then pass in that post. So it's going to update the post. Very simple. And now we're going to go ahead and have a bunch of broken stuff inside of our controllers and stuff. So the first thing we want to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and just delete this, and then now we need to go ahead and go into our post controller. So let's go and hop in there. Now inside our post controller, we're going to go ahead and get rid of this. Let's see here. So we have these two. So again, we'll just recreate this. It's fine. Okay, looks good. Save that. And there's still an error, but we'll fix it in a second. Now we can go ahead and start working on actually setting up our views and stuff. We need to go ahead and set up some configuration to fetch the IP address and all of that stuff. And I also want to go ahead and make sure our application is actually running again. So it says it started, so it looks good. Cool. So now let's go ahead, and I don't remember where we're making this at, so let me double check GitHub once again. Just going to go into our config. So let's go ahead and space JC. This is going to go into config. I cannot speak this morning, I'm sorry. And this is going to go ahead and be IP, and then handshake, and then interceptor, like so, interceptor. And this is going to basically allow us to fetch our IP address from a request, or it's going to be from a WebSocket request, but it is what it is. It's going to be implements, and then handshake and interceptor, like so. That's going to have us implement a couple of methods. Let's go and implement those. So add unimplemented methods. We're going to go ahead and ignore this before handshake. We're going to go ahead and delete this so it doesn't throw an exception. But we'll just go ahead and like return, well, I'm looking at the wrong one. So we return true here, and it's this one. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. That way it doesn't get mad at us. And we're going to return true for the time being. Let's go ahead and delete this bit. So here we're going to go ahead and say attributes.put, and we're going to go ahead and say IP. Excuse me, I got the hiccups here. And then after IP, we're going to go ahead and say request.get remote address. And we're going to say get address. And we're going to say .get address host, or get host address. So this is basically going to get the IP. For us, I think since we're running on localhost, the web browser and everything, or React, I'm sorry, it's always going to go ahead and return 000, which now that I think about it, probably actually not going to work. And I might need to rethink this once again, how we're going to fetch the IP address. We might need to resend it in a different way from React. But for the time being, this is working. If I need to go through and tweak it again, I will, but it is what it is. So that's going to be how we're going to go ahead and fetch the IP address whenever we are sending requests back and forth. Now we need to go ahead and make an update to our WebSocket configuration to allow us to, one, be multi-threaded, and two, be able to go ahead and send the views over in a separate thread basically, or in a separate WebSocket. So let's go and hop into our WebSocket configuration. Inside our WebSocket configuration, first thing we need to go ahead and do is enable asynchronous. I can say enable async, async, like so. That should go ahead and allow us to use multi-threads here. We're going to come down to line 20. So we're going to go ahead and open this up, I believe. And then here we're going to go and say registry dot, and we're going to go ahead and say enable simple broker. And inside here, we're going to go ahead and say ./view. And then we're going to go ahead and come down here to line 27. Again, we're off by a line or two. We're going to go ahead and come here behind the .ws. And we're going to go ahead and say add interceptors. And this is going to be a new IP. We call this IP and maybe shake interceptor, like so. We're still going to have the allowed origins. We can still have it with sock.js, and we're going to go ahead and save that. And since this is inside of our config package, we don't need to go and import that. So there's that. Let's save that up. And now we need to go ahead and actually deal with our threads and whatnot. So let's come down here. We're going to say @bean, go and import our bean here. And we're going to give this a name equal to, and this is going to be view executor. Executor, like so. I think it's an O. There we go. And then this is going to be public and task executor. I cannot spell, I'm sorry. Or talk. And it's going to be view executor. Okay, let's go ahead and make this function or method. Cool. So we're going to say thread and maybe pool executor, like so. Go ahead and call this executor is equal to a new thread. I could type pool executor, and this is not going to take anything in for the time being. We probably could have done this on a line, but this is how I've seen how to do it online. I haven't done much with threads and stuff in Java because I haven't used Java for a while, but it is what it is. That one we use microservices, so we don't have that much traffic going into each one, so there's not much multi-threading going on. There's a little bit, but nothing crazy. Go ahead and say executor, and then .set for pool size. So for web, they suggest 10. Next, we're going to say executor .set, and we're going to set max pool size or maximum pool size here, and we're going to say 50. Next, we're going to go and say executor .set, and we're going to go and set queue capacity executor .set. I don't know why this isn't showing up, and I might have did something wrong here. Thread pool executor. This should be task executor, like so. Let's go ahead and delete this, and this should be task executor. Task executor. There we go. Missed a task in there. And set. Now this actually is just max. There we go. Set, and then this one's going to be queue, maybe capacity. I don't know if I spelled capacity right. I didn't. Let's go ahead and try again. Bear with me here. Set queue capacity. There we go. And this is going to be 500. Next, we're going to say executor .set, and this is going to be thread, maybe name prefix. And here we're going to say view dash or view executor dash. Okay, and then finally we're going to say executor. I can't spell, oh my goodness. Executor dot, and then we're going to say initialize, like so. We're going to go ahead and return the executor. So make sure I didn't spell anything wrong. I think that's all spelled properly. So this is going to go ahead and basically set up a pool of threads for us to send tasks to, and then it's going to go ahead and process those in whichever order the compiler or the CPU is going to see fit here. And again, I got these as recommended settings from, I don't remember what it was, about an article or some sort of article similar to that. This is what they're recommending for whenever you're sending in or taking in requests from the web, basically. But this is going to basically allow us to send in a whole bunch of requests inside of our WebSocket over and over again, fingers crossed, and then not basically run out of resources. Especially since I have quite a few cores on this computer, it should be fine. course, it's going to depend on how many cores and stuff like that you have, but this should go ahead and speed up our views so we can send them in one by one, basically. So now we need to go ahead and create a new DTO class to allow us to actually send these. Let me go ahead and just double check that we're just putting these in DTO. We are. Let's go ahead and make the new class in. Whoops, I made an interface on accident. JC, go ahead and put this in DTO. And then this is going to go ahead and be view post message, and then DTO. I call it message. It's not like a message in a literal sense. It's a message because we're sending it inside the queue. Let's go ahead and confirm here. And then inside, we just need a couple things. We just need a private integer and user ID, and a private integer, and it's going to be post ID. And again, remember, we don't have to send an integer user ID. It could be null or whatever. And then we're going to be getting the IP address from the request itself. Again, I might end up changing that to see if I can figure out a way to get the IP address of the actual system, but that is what it is. So now we're going to go ahead instead of our constructor, so space CA, we'll go ahead and do our constructors. We'll do a no args, and we'll go ahead and do our all args constructor here. Go ahead and do getters and setters. We'll also go ahead and just do a toString really quick. So toString, and do those. There we go. Looks fine. Might go ahead and clean this up a little bit just to add some spacing here. But that is going to do it for our message to send the views back to us. Let's go ahead and save that. And then now let's go ahead and create the PostViewService, which is going to go ahead and set up those views. Let's go ahead and say space JC. Go ahead and put this in services, PostViewService. And let's go ahead and open this up. Now let's go and say at service, say at transactional. So also here I had some issues with circular dependencies and stuff, so it's a little bit strange the way we set things up. Just know it's because of circular dependencies. We're going to say private final, and we're going to say user service and user service. Next we'll say private final, and this is going to be post service. That's why I made that update post. Private final, and we're going to have a post view repository, post, and I spelled private wrong. Let's make sure we spell that right. Private, we have a post and view, repository, and then finally I have a private final and task executor. So this is going to go ahead and be that bean that we set up. Next I have at and auto wired. We'll have our public post view and service, and let's go ahead and bring in the user service. We'll go ahead and bring in the post service and post service. We'll bring in our post view repository, and then finally we'll have our task executor. We're going to say at qualifier to go ahead and get the correct one, and it's going to be our view executor, like so. And then this is going to be our task executor and view executor. Hopefully I spelled that right. Let's see. Yes, I did. Make sure we just import our post view repository here because we had spelled some stuff wrong. We can say this dot user service equal to user service. This dot and then post service equal to post service. We'll say this dot and then post view repository is equal to post view repository. And finally, this dot view executor. I don't know why that one doesn't want to show up. Is equal to view executor. Did I spell something wrong? It's because I called it task executor up there. Make sure we call this view. Go and delete this. View executor. There we go. So there's like one primary function here, or a couple of functions, I guess, but there's gonna be one like bigger function to see if the view exists and stuff. But this shouldn't be too bad, I don't think. Let's go ahead and come down below here. Let's go and say a public boolean and view exists. It's gonna go ahead and take in an integer post ID and a string, string location. And here it's gonna go ahead and return post view. I spelled return wrong. Return, maybe, post view repository. And let's make sure we do this right. Post view repository. There we go. Dot find by ID. And then here we're gonna go ahead and take in a new post view ID, and this is going to go ahead and pass in location and post ID. And we're going to say dot is present. Whoops. Dot is maybe present. Let's go ahead and import our post view ID. So this should return an optional, and we're going to go ahead and check to see if it's there. Let's see what I did wrong. New post view ID, return post view repository dot find by ID. Oh, you know what? Let me go back into the JPA repository here. This isn't an integer, remember? This is going to be a post view ID. Let's hop back in there. Yep, okay. Now remember, we actually messed it up. So now we're going to go ahead and check to see if the view exists. Let's go and say public, whoops, maybe. Public, and this is going to go ahead and be a post view. Go and import post view, and it's going to be create post view, excuse me. Give me an integer, and this will be post ID. We're going to have an application, user, and user. We'll have our string location, and here it's going to go ahead and return post view repository, and we're going to go ahead and say save a new, and this is going to go ahead and have a new post view like so. It's going to go ahead and take in a location, a post ID, and a user. So that looks good. Let's come down below here. We're going to have a public void and update post with view. Here we're going to have our post, and let's go and import post, and then we're going to go ahead and say post view view. Inside here we're going to say set post view, and then we're going to say views is equal to post.get, and then views like so. Go and get the views. We're going to say views that add that specific view that we just created, and then PostService update post, and then go ahead and have our post here. So I tried making this as modular as possible because we're going to have so many moving pieces. So we want to make sure that we have as many transactions as possible. So that's why I'm breaking these up in as many methods as possible, because with @transactional, each method is going to go ahead and run as a transaction. Finally, let's go ahead and say public void, and we're going to say process view post, and then here you're going to have an integer, integer, and post ID, and integer user ID. And then finally, we'll have string location. Go ahead and come in here. And here, we're going to go ahead and say if the view exists, maybe if view exists, pass in the post ID and location. Post ID and location. We're just going to go ahead and return instantly, basically. And again, there's some slip ups with this because it takes a while to write to the database. So sometimes it doesn't completely catch it, but it is what it is. We're going to have application user is equal to null to start out. Then we're going to say if our user ID is greater than 0, then we're going to go ahead and say user is equal to user service dot get user by ID and pass in user ID. So if we actually pass one in, we'll go and set that. Say post view view is going to be equal to create post view. Follow the method here. This is going to have the post ID, the user, and the location. Let's go and add our semicolon. And we're going to say post is equal to post service dot get post by ID. And then we're going to pass in that post ID. And then finally, we'll go and say update post with view. We don't need to send the view back to the front end. So we're just going to go and update the post. We can update the post on the front end itself, and whenever we refresh, it'll obviously come back. And finally, we're going to say public void, and this is going to be execute, and then view post. Here, we're going to go ahead and have our integer and post ID, integer, user ID, and then finally string location. As we're going to go ahead and make use of our task executor, the view executor, maybe. Executor, like a type, and we're going to go ahead and say .execute, and then here we're going to have a lambda to go ahead and say how we want to deal with this, and we're going to go ahead and say process view post. We're going to go ahead and pass in the post ID. We're going to pass in the user ID. We're going to pass in the location. So this will go ahead and execute that in our thread of pools or pool threads. Go and save that. Let's actually make sure this isn't breaking. So it is breaking right now. Let's go ahead and see if we try to rerun this, if it's going to work. PostView Repository could not be found. Let's see if that's still an issue. Maybe I typoed something, maybe not. Let's see. That's fine. We're going to ignore that. Okay, so it was just being a little bit finicky. Cool. So the very last thing that we need to do here, I know we're probably getting a little bit long, is set up the view controller. The last thing we need to go ahead and do is set up a new view controller. We also need to go ahead and step away to fetch a user's location in an authentication controller for some future stuff in the next episode. But first, let's go ahead and create the view controller. So space JC, go ahead and put this in controllers. Go ahead and call this view controller. We could call it a view post controller, but it is what it is. Open this up, go ahead and say at controller. Notice we're not saying at rest controller because we're going to go ahead and use this to send messages back and forth with our WebSockets here. Let's go ahead and say private final. And this is going to go ahead and be PostViewService and PostViewService like so. Let's go ahead and come down here at auto wired. If I could type, that'd be cool. Public view and controller. And then we're going to go ahead and say PostViewService. If I could type, that'd be cool. PostViewService, PostViewService. And then here we're going to go ahead and say this dot PostViewService is equal to PostViewService. Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and have at message mapping. And this is going to go ahead and go to /view. So this is how we send messages back and forth or send messages to our front end here. And this is going to go ahead and be public void. I said front end, I meant back end. Public void and then view. This is going to take in a simp and message header accessor. HA, and this is going to go ahead and say view post message DTO and view, and this could throws an exception. Let's go ahead and deal with that. There's exception. Here we're going to say string IP, IP is equal to, and then HA dot get and session attributes. And here we're going to say get and then IP, and we're going to say dot to string. All right. And then we're also going to go ahead and say PostViewService dot, and we're going to go ahead and say execute view post. We're going to go and pass in view dot get and then post ID. We're going to go ahead and pass in view dot get user ID, and then the location is going to go ahead and be IP. Like I said before, we might need to change the IP because now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably fetching the IP of the React server that's running, since React runs on a server rather than the browser itself. Maybe it's different whenever it's not in dev mode, because obviously dev mode you're running on a dev server. First, whenever you build out a React application, it sends it back as just like a JSON or something, and then you view it in your browser. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see. And then finally, let's go ahead and open up our authentication controller like I was saying, and set up a way to get the user's location for later on. So now let's just go ahead and come down here. I'm going to go ahead and just put this under register maybe. I'll put it above register for the heck of it. We're just going to go ahead and say at get mapping. I don't know if we have get mapping yet. I guess we do. It's going to be called // location. And then here it's going to say public and response entity. If I could spell response. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry y'all, this has been a mess. Response entity, cannot type, of string, and this is going to be fetch user and then location, http servlet request. We'll go ahead and bring in that request. Here we're going to go ahead and return a new response. I could type entity of type string, and this is going to go ahead and be request.get remote address, and then we're going to go ahead and say http status .ok and send that back. Let's make sure everything's compiling. Now the last thing that we need to go ahead and do is just make sure everyone can hit this /view. So let's go ahead and hop into the Spring security configuration and set that up. Inside security configuration, let's just go ahead and come down to where MVC matchers are. And we're going to go ahead and come after here, I suppose. We'll say .mvc and matchers. And it's going to go ahead and be the /view. like so. We're going to go and say permit all, and that should go ahead and allow everyone to make a view. Go and save. Let's just make sure our application is running and everything before we end off the episode. And unfortunately, there's no good way to go ahead and go through and actually test all this. So we're going to have to go ahead and do that in the next episode. But as long as the application's running, we should be good. And we can go ahead and debug in the next episode if anything's not working. That's going to go ahead and do it for this episode. If you did enjoy, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Everything helps out here with the YouTube algorithm. If you do want to see where we start from absolute scratch to get the point out, there's going to be a playlist in the end card like right over here. Over here, I don't remember which one, but it is what it is. And as always, y'all, this has been Ethan or Unknown Coder. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.